Welcome everyone to this week's episode of Beyond Motherhood. I'm your host, Monique Bathurst, and I have an amazing guest with us this week, Kamina James. Welcome, Kamina.
Hi, lovely to be here.
Amazing. And I am going to get Kamina to share a bit more about herself and what she does. She's a coach for women, but it's actually a really niche area, which I love. So, Kamina, I'd love for you to first of all share a bit about you, what you do, and your story and how you got into coaching women.
Sure. Well, I coach mainly creative people to make steady income out of that creative work in a flexible way, basically, so you can leave your 9 to 5. And I love to focus on women who have had babies because I think my reality and the reality for my friends is that we have our kids and then suddenly realize we maybe don't want to go back to work the way we did before. And it's a crisis point for a lot of people. So I love to help and intervene there. But I coach all kinds of creative people, basically with the message that you can make money out of creative work, whether it's writing, art, dancing, theater, music, whatever, because I have a background in that type of creativity. So I was a film and TV actor when I was a kid. I was a musical theater kid, dancing, drama, piano lessons, all that stuff growing up. I did theater at uni. I did music at uni. I've recorded a full-length LP, which is on Spotify. So I've always done creative work. And then probably in the last 10 years, I've really leaned into supporting myself in a way that is really flexible because I'm not a person who copes with 9 to 5. Um, my husband is also like that. He had for a long time undiagnosed ADHD. It's now diagnosed, and we're coping better with life because of that diagnosis. But neither of us are people who really like to do work the way normal people do, in inverted commas. And I just have had so many people over the years say to me, how do you guys do it? How do you just not have a job? Like, how are you traveling and buying a house and doing all this stuff? And you guys seem to hardly ever actually like be working. You don't have normal jobs. And so in the last couple of years, I've gotten into coaching people and helping them to do it too, because I'm just really passionate about people not having 9 to 5s, especially if you're creative, especially if you've got kids.
Yeah, I am here for that for sure.
Great.
I've never done things traditionally, so becoming an entrepreneur was it was always in my
Yeah.
future, I think, just to go against the grain a bit. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, but I also come from a creative background. Grew up, yeah, playing instruments, music, dancing, doing music
Mm,
theatre. So I love that, and I'm a music therapist by profession. That's kind of what
mm,
I've been doing as my career for most of it. But I love that you spoke about, yeah, particularly mothers, and because
yeah.
I know from my own personal experience, what I actually wanted to do with my life and how I saw, I guess, my career completely shifted after having kids.
Hmm.
Obviously,
Absolutely.
like many of us, we want that flexibility. Um,
Mm,
but I think, so many mothers can really struggle to even reconnect and know
yeah.
what their passion is and what their, get those creative
Mm,
juices going and what their vocation is postpartum because it
yeah.
does change us. So
Hmm.
I'd love to know what you sort of come across with, or even from your own personal experience, what you've come across with
Mm.
the clients that you work with. Like, what are some of the roadblocks that they have and they struggle with in sort of reconnecting with that part of themselves and finding that vocation after becoming mothers?
I think there are two big reasons I see, time and expectations, and they're so intertwined. A huge part of what I teach women, especially those who have kids, is time management, which sounds really boring. But the way that I manage time and encourage my clients to manage their time is pretty unconventional, and that's the expectations piece. I think we're just trying to do things the way we've always done it, and we're trying to do things the way we see other people do it, and we've got these expectations on ourselves. Like, I have to do normal things like have a clean house and meals on the table and blah blah blah. Oh, that takes up my whole life. And so, when am I going to have time to reconnect with myself or do something I'm passionate about? And so, like, the expectation I think often of us has is, well, we will like do all the things we think we have to do and then see what time is left over for ourselves. Well, I always do it the other way around and tell people to do it the other way around. So most people will do all our mundane jobs and then give our energy to our creative stuff or our vocation. But again, I just say to people, no, do it the other way around. Do the creative stuff first, do the vocational stuff first, because the other stuff is going to happen. And then
Yeah.
I think the third expectation, like especially for mothers, um, society kind of tells us that our kids are in the way of our life and we have to try and get them out of the way. Whereas I'm really big on being more integrated. So, doing your home care work with your baby, doing your creative work with your baby, doing your work while your baby is around, trying to be more integrated rather than being like, oh, I've got to get these kids out of the way so that I can do my life, which is the
Mm,
message that we so often get. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And I love that you said about doing the creative stuff first, because often that
Mm.
can actually help us in terms of
Yes.
opening up this our spaciousness and our ability to be able to then do
Yes.
mundane things potentially. So, and that's
Hmm.
fun too. And I sometimes have to remind myself that because, like we all do, we kind of at times just get stuck in the grind, so to speak,
We
and
do.
doing the things day in and day out. But it's amazing when you create that space for yourself to tap into your creativity, what actually unfolds from there. And I know for
Yeah.
me, even just within my own business, when I'm kind of feeling stuck with writing or coming up with content or anything like that,
Mhm.
just doing like a movement practice or just something like that, or getting my guitar out, it
Yeah.
just completely transforms those
Yeah.
blocks that we sometimes will come across.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd love to know, like, how can creativity be a tool for self-discovery and healing during that sort of postpartum period? I mean, and even as we move through motherhood.
Yeah, and beyond. It's so important. And look, I've got three thoughts on this. The first one is probably pretty obvious, and the second two I think are a bit less obvious. So I say the first one first. It's really obvious. I think we know this. You would know this, Monique, being a music therapist, that obviously creativity is great for processing and healing. So I don't need to talk a lot about this, but obviously art is an amazing way to express our feelings. It's a way to work through, and maybe we might have trauma from birth. We might have that rage that so many of us feel in early postpartum days, a lot of grief around the life we had before, even the grief of our babies growing bigger before our eyes is really real.
Mm.
And so, obviously, doing something like writing in your journal or writing a song or singing or dancing around the living room or drawing something is great for expressing those feelings. So that's a really important thing, I think. But even beyond that, some ways that I think are less obvious, like creativity, is just it gives us permission to do something that society tells us is frivolous or unnecessary. So,
Mm.
like, if you give yourself permission to, like, not be doing the housework or not building that Montessori fully functioning toddler kitchen or not be updating your resume in preparation for going back to some soul-sucking industry you don't want to do, if you just are like, I've got 30 precious minutes after my kid goes in bed and I'm just going to do a watercolor painting, like you are telling yourself that you value beauty and mindfulness and your own heart happiness over all of the other stuff that society expects of you. And that is so powerful. So that is one way it's really healing. It just gives you permission to be frivolous. And it's also really good, like escapism from your present reality and reconnecting with yourself, I think. Like it's mindfulness, it gets you in flow, but it can get you back in touch with who you really want to be. Like I have I have an embarrassing confession. When my baby was newborn, in the evenings, I was spending my time on, I was writing this sort of like funny, sexy detective novel, which was really like a Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan fiction, because I'm Buffy obsessed. And that is completely frivolous, right? Really, really silly. But I was spending my evenings thinking about like cute clothes that characters might wear, or like where you put your hands when you're kissing, or like a drink being mixed in a bar in New York. And those things were interesting to me before I had a baby, right? So that was like a way to just escape and be like, I remember who I am through writing this silly story. So I think like permission to be frivolous and a permission to kind of escape to yourself, are things that creative work can do for us. Yeah.
Yeah. And I speak a lot about pleasure, and pleasure in the sense of all things like alignment,
Yeah.
joy, and of course, sex and all the other things as well. But again, like you were saying, like society tells us that it's unnecessary and it's like
Mm,
indulgent and all that sort of stuff, where it's actually, I always say, it's our birthright. Like this is
yes.
part of who we are. We are creative beings, and especially
Mm,
like we create life, we birth
mm,
into the world. Like that is part of who we are. And
yeah.
like you said, society just kind of from a young age just completely shuts that down. And
Mm.
you know, it's a very hyper masculine society that we live in. So it's all
Yeah.
about output and what we achieve and produce and all that
Mm.
sort of thing, to then kind of
Mm.
switch into the more feminine way of being and tap into that creativity and flow. Um,
Mm.
yeah, it can be seen as, well, you shouldn't be doing that. Like, who do you think you
Mm.
that? So I love that you touched on that, because it's something that I've been kind of playing with and contemplating a lot recently. Well, probably
Mm.
last year or so. Yeah. So thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm
Yeah.
all about pleasure and fun. Absolutely.
Yes, for sure. So I'd love to know, what are some simple ways that you support yourself and other mums who might be feeling really overwhelmed and even just lacking that sort of purpose in life? Like, how can they start
Mm.
to tap back into their passions and their creativity and that energy? And even if they're, you know, maybe unsure of what that even is and how to even access that.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll give you a really practical exercise that I want everyone listening to do, and then I can give you some more kind of philosophical ruminations on ways you might get unstuck. So this is small. I like to start small. So a small exercise you can do right now to start tapping into your kind of creative energy or the things that make you feel like yourself, or think about something you might pursue as a vocation. Um, I want you to think of a time in your life when you felt really happy and things felt easy. And for a lot of people, especially if they can't think of a time like that as an adult, you might think back to when you were a kid
Mm.
or a teenager, regardless of whether you had a happy childhood or not. Because like we don't actually change that much. I'm a firm believer in that. And the things that were true when we were little kids often stay true even into adulthood. So if you can think of a time that you felt happy and write a list of activities that you enjoyed doing. That's all, just write a list. So for me, if I think back to when I was a kid, I think about being on stage performing, singing, dancing, acting. I think about reading alone in my room. So I love to read undisturbed. I think about how I love playing with fashion and going op shopping and buying silly clothes. As an adult, my happiest memories, sort of from my 20s and early 30s, is like watching really great TV shows. I love TV, not ashamed of it. I love making music. I love exercising at the gym. I love listening to podcasts, cooking food, making cocktails. I'm really into making cocktails. Hanging out with a particular set of friends. Like, just make your list. There is no judgment. This list can be as frivolous as you want. In fact, I hope people know by now, I think the sillier and more shallow and fun the things are, the better. So just to write a simple list of activities that you know made you happy in the past. And it's really important that these are not things that you think make you happy or things you think should make you happy, things that actually make you happy. So you need to stop and check in with yourself that you're not blocking yourself because you're judging, just the most frivolous things that really light up your heart. And then as a practical step, I would say look at that list and pick one thing that you can actually do, like the smallest, easiest thing on the list. And physically write that thing on your to-do list for tomorrow or put it on your calendar and then actually do it.
Mm.
Um, I think that's an amazing step for just starting to tap back in. And when you do it, I want you to notice it. So like don't complain or think it doesn't count because it could be better, or I only did it for 5 minutes, or I got interrupted. Just put your hand on your heart and be like, "Ah, I'm so grateful that I watched that 20-minute episode of that TV show. I'm so grateful that I drank my coffee outside instead of inside today, or I read that comic book for 5 minutes, or whatever it is." Just really notice it and then just try and do it again a bit more as soon as you can. And then just see what that sparks and start following those threads. I think it sounds, people will be resistant to this because we go, no, I'm trying to find a new vocation. I'm trying to change the world. I'm trying to change my life. Yeah, you can do all of that. That's actually exactly what I coach people to do. But you have to start by being willing to do something small and fun for yourself first, because everything flows out of that. And that kind of permission to do that is going to help you to tap back into who you really are. And that's the start of it all. Yeah, that's my
Mm.
big tip.
Yeah, yeah. And as you were sort of saying some of those things, I was like, yep, definitely. And especially, I just remember vividly as a kid, like I used to just love playing dress ups and
Mm.
expressing myself that way. And it's something I've actually brought back into my life the last probably 18 months. I started dancing again, um, sort of towards the end of 2023,
Uh-huh.
and just trying like wearing different outfits to dance now. Sort of
Yes.
being
Yes.
really, and it's been outside of my comfort zone, but it's been just this form of self-expression that way,
Mm.
the dancing as well. But yeah, just like putting on like a bold lipstick, 'cause I never wear makeup these days.
Yes.
But you know, something like that that's completely out of the ordinary what I do. But you know, I feel
Mm.
amazing when I do it, and just like trying different colors in my wardrobe instead of just, you know, the beige
Yes.
beige,
Yeah.
you know, that type of thing. Like all these little things, like they don't seem like, you know, quote unquote much, but
Mm.
they, yeah, allow us to express ourselves in that creative way.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. Yeah.
yeah. And so I've really enjoyed exploring and playing with that a little bit the last
Mm.
months or so.
That's
Um,
beautiful.
and yeah, it's so simple, but so
Mm.
impactful. And it's like something I look forward to now. I'm like, oh, what am I going to wear this week to dancing? And
Oh, that's so
have a
great.
list.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, and this kind of flows into the next question about mum guilt and you know because to put ourselves first and prioritize ourselves and kind of
Mm.
explore ourselves in a creative way, it can often lead to mum guilt because
Mm.
you know that's just again how our society has told us like you shouldn't be, you have to be a martyr. So how can mums navigate that guilt that they can often go through that comes with not only pursuing their creative passions and
Mm.
like that, but also a career and while there's raising young kids and a family.
Yeah, well, I've got so much I could say in response to this. So I'll share a few thoughts and then we might dig in a little bit more. So I think this is related to what I was saying before about expectations and about integration. I have to give a disclaimer. I don't know if I'm the best person to speak about guilt because I'm like, my word for 2025 is unbothered. Okay. I'm not a very bothered person. So I really try not to do a lot of guilt. But I think the reason for that is that I'm really crystal clear on what's important to me and I live those values. And I'm going to say something a little bit probably confronting here, which is, when we talk about that push and pull of like motherhood versus vocation or career and the guilt that we feel, I actually don't think that balancing those two things is the real problem. Because if all you ever did was pursue a passion and spend time with your kids, your life would be really well balanced. You'd probably have time to invest in both, right? And I say that as a person who basically, don't hate me, I spend all my time with my kid or doing things I want to do. And the thing that is difficult is that most of us are spending way too much time on other stuff. We're spending too much time cleaning our houses and trying to work out what to have for dinner and scrolling on our phones and driving to places that are far away. We're spending too much time in traffic. We are doing like time consuming, unhelpful stuff to try to cope with our dysregulation instead of regulating ourselves. So if you're doing a job that you hate, you will probably feel guilty because you don't want to be there. But if you're doing something that you can really get lost in, you probably won't have space to feel guilty because you're so present in it. And same with being with your kids. If you're having really quality time with your kids, you'll feel less guilty when you leave them. But it's when we have those like crappy days with our kids where we know we didn't parent at our best. And then we're like, bye, I got to go to work. That's when we feel really bad. And I think we're just really trying to meet the wrong expectations. We are spending all of our time doing stuff like housework, life admin, social obligations, and we're trying to look after our kid at the same time. And it's kind of getting in the way of all that. And we're just being really frustrated because we see all these things as being incompatible. Um, and so basically, we have to try and like, we have to get rid of that big to-do list of all the other stuff that we do. We have to stop spending our time on the wrong things. I think we feel guilty because we are spending our time on things that matter less to us than our kids, and they matter less than our ultimate kind of life passions. So that's like a big answer because people are going to be like, well, how can you have it so easy? How can you not spend your time on all that stuff? You must make loads of money and pay people to do stuff for you or whatever else they assume. But I want to say that is why I teach this to people because I don't have like loads of extra money or any out of the ordinary resources that most other people don't have. And I want people to have the kind of life that I have. So like, as I said, I spend time parenting my little boy and I work part-time on stuff that I really, really love doing, and I don't really do much else. And that is actually really, really possible. And that is what I teach. So I can dig in a bit more to the practicality. Like if you've got questions like, well, how do you do that? When do you do your laundry? I can tell you if you like. But I think like, yeah, I don't know if that's a good answer to how do we deal with guilt, but I want to say if you're feeling very guilty, if you really, really, truly think about it deep in your heart, is it because maybe you're actually not spending your time on the things that matter most to you? I think that's when our heart really aches, is when we're spending our time on stuff that doesn't matter that much to us, but we just get sucked in and think we have to because everyone else is doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just thinking about when you said, when do you do your laundry? But I know that you
Yeah.
said earlier about time management, and is it about just like scheduling and blocking time out for those more mundane tasks that we have to do? Is that how you navigate that?
No, no, I don't have a schedule and I don't block time. So I live very like free and easy. It's because I only do the main things. So I just get up every day and go, what do we really need to get done today? And like, yeah, laundry has to happen. Well, I always do laundry. So I do all of my housework, laundry, meal planning, dishes, cooking, all of that stuff. I do all of that while I'm looking after my kid and I involve him in it. And yes, it takes 3 times longer, right? But I might as well be doing something with him. Like, what else am I going to do? It's a really nice way to spend time with him. If I'm going to have, like, be trying to fill the hours, so many of us are trying to fill the hours of a long day at home. You might as well be emptying the dishwasher. Like, my mental rule is I try to have I don't want to do any work after dinner. I don't want to do housework after dinner, except for the post-dinner cleanup. None of that. I don't do anything in the evenings when my kid's sleeping. That's my time, right? So my whole day is focused around I want to have leisure time while my kid is asleep. That's my goal for the day. I think most of us don't make that the goal for the day. Like, so that's when I do all that stuff. Um, yes, I have a house cleaner. It's $90 a fortnight for 2 hours. I gladly go without other things in order to pay for a house cleaner because it is so much more important to me to have someone to clean my house. That brings me happiness than
Mm.
pay for other things. I would be spending money on other things in order to try to cope with my life if I had to do the housework, right? So I don't clean my house and I don't carry the mental load of cleaning the house. If I see something dirty, I think, oh, great, the cleaner will get that on Wednesday. I do not worry about it.
Mm.
So I think like that's how I'm not, as I said, I'm not a very scheduled person. I'm just a very intentional person and I do the first things first. So sometimes the first thing is like, I want to do laundry today. That goes on my list. And I just know, okay, by the time dinner happens, we have to have done a load of laundry today. And other times it's like, yeah, I really want to do this thing for me today. So I'm going to make sure that as soon as my kid goes down for his nap, I just walk straight to the room that I need to do that in and I do that thing. And I
Mm.
don't do the other stuff. I read this really powerful quote and I share it with my clients all the time, which is housework is the most powerful way to stop a woman. And I always say, don't let the housework stop you. You're never going to look back and think, I wish I cleaned the kitchen more. But
Yeah.
if you look back and you've created something, if you've built a business, if you've written a song, whatever it is, you're going to be like, I'm so glad I did that thing. Oh, my
Yeah.
kitchen's still messy, but it would have been messy anyway, girls. Let's be honest. Okay.
There's always a dish to clean.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a little bit of insight into my life. Oh, and I should say, I work 6 hours a week. I have a babysitter 6 hours a week. That's when I do my deep work.
Mm.
And my toddler will go to daycare soon when he's 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that. And
That's all right.
yeah, I often find myself going, you know what? I don't need to be in the kitchen now because then I just feel like I spend my whole day there, especially when you work
Yeah.
well. Like I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I can just do it all at the end of the day. Like I don't
Mm.
need to be in here every, hour
Yeah.
putting
Yeah.
in
No,
the
no,
dish away.
it'll just expand to fill the time you give it. So if you only give it 20 minutes, like one thing I do use is timers. I often will set a timer and be like, that's it, 15 minutes to clean the kitchen up or 15 minutes to whatever. That's it. When the timer stops, I'm stopping.
Yeah.
Um, and that will motivate you to do it really, really fast.
Yes, exactly. And
Yeah.
it doesn't actually take that long. Like if
Nah.
you add up all the little times you did it throughout the day, it probably is longer than if you just set aside one time and just got it all
A
done.
100% it is, 100%. So I do think, we talked about time blocking. I said I don't block time. Well, I don't do it intentionally, like at the start of the day. I don't have a schedule, but I
Yeah.
will try to be focused on like, okay, cool, let's do this thing let's do 10 minutes of cleaning up, or, let's do this or that, so that I'm focused. Because otherwise you get into that thing where you wander around the house just doing stuff all day long.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I try to physically go outside and be like, okay, we're going to spend half an hour outside, and in that time, I'm going to bring the washing in. Like,
Yeah.
and that's just, yeah. Yeah. So I do use that a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Good little
Mm.
tips there. Um, but yeah, I'm kind of similar. Like I'll try and get if I need to do washing, I'll be my youngest is home with me 4 days a fortnight, and I'm like, okay, let's go outside together and kind
Mhm.
of play while getting the clothes off the
Yeah.
putting them on the line or whatever.
Yeah.
So trying to just
Yeah.
weave it all in together can be helpful.
Yeah. And it's that integrated thing because so many of my clients will say to me, yeah, but if it takes so long, I can do it in 5 minutes if they're asleep. And I'm like, yeah, but seriously, but what else are you going to do? The kid loves doing laundry. They don't know the difference. So why don't you just spend 40 minutes doing the laundry? And then when they go to sleep, you can do whatever you feel like. And that's when you're going to hit your goals. That's when you're going to exercise or work on your business or play your ukulele for 10 minutes or have a sleep.
Yeah, or just close your eyes and rest.
Yeah, do something for you, do that pleasure, do that enjoyment, do that frivolousness. Like that's yeah, if yeah, so I just think like that's what I mean about we see our kids as getting in the way of stuff because people tell us like we get this messaging all the time, oh, kids are hassle, it's so hard to do anything. No, just do the stuff with them and lean in to the fact that it's kind of a hassle. It's kind of annoying, but your kid is gonna love it. And then you know what? You do not feel guilty when you go off to do something else because you've been so present with your kid and they loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. And they learn as well.
And they learn to do it amazingly,
Skill.
yes. Yeah.
Um, I've got one final question for you. I'd love to know
Mm,
what sort of advice you would give a mum who might be feeling a bit lost in motherhood and just lost in herself and
mm,
maybe doesn't even know where to start when it comes to reclaiming her identity and purpose.
yeah. Okay. I've got a few tips for which you can, this is like, think of it as a toolkit. It's not a set of steps you have to do in order, but it's a toolkit. You can listen to this, and if you hear one that resonates, you'd be like, yeah, I'm going to do that one. Number one, this is a cliche for a reason. Breathe. Stop. I like to put my hand on my heart and take deep breaths and do that little pat on the heart that helps you to reconnect with your own heartbeat and just breathe for a minute. Whenever you're feeling overwhelmed, just do that to start to reconnect with that sort of like that thinking mind, because we get so overwhelmed and swamped, I think. So breathing is a really powerful tool for connecting with yourself. It's really boring, but seriously, you need to do it. If you stop and do 5 deep breaths and think of 5 things you're grateful for, which is the kind of thing if someone tells me to do that, I'm like, oh, mom, that's going to take so long. Ugh. But if you do it, by the end of it, you will feel better. So that's number one. And then another one that you can do, I promise I'll get to the good stuff in a minute. This is another boring one. You need to sleep. Okay. You need to sleep.
Mm,
And I mean, I could do a whole podcast on how to help mums sleep. But sleep is so powerful because, like, if you just decided that you were going to go to bed early tomorrow night, and by the way, I'm doing this because I have the last couple of nights stayed up a little bit too late. My to-do list has been a little bit out of control, and I'm just like, great, tomorrow night, it doesn't matter what's on the to-do list. I'm going to bed early. I'm going to sleep. Again, it comes back to just giving ourselves permission to let everything slide and do the first things first. If you can't start doing the first things first, you're never going to get this right. So sleep is like the first thing. So you have to let yourself sleep, even when stuff's not done. Okay, now that you're breathing and sleeping and your brain is like working a tiny bit better, I would say connect. That's a really important thing. Just start talking to people about it. And I would say especially reach out to friends that you were close with before you had kids and just text them about something that you used to enjoy together. Those people are going to remind you who you are. Just try and find a way to just go and do something that you used to love doing just one time. You will be amazed at the impact that that. So those are kind of the attending to the body, attending to the heart kind of things that are not super productive in a traditional sense, but that you just need to start giving yourself permission to rest and to connect and start saying to people, oh, I want to remember who I am. Remind me who I am. What can I do that I used to love doing? Cool. I'm just going to go to that art class. I'm going to have a drink with my friend. Like I'm going to find out a way to do and figure out a way to do something. Um, Now I would say I've got two more things to say. Fourth thing is maybe just have an attitude of trying to take a baby step or making things like 5 to 10% better. So, like, one of my New Year's resolutions this year was to, I think Coco Chanel said, when you leave the house, you should look in the mirror and then take one thing off, like take off one accessory, because she was very into like sort of very minimal, sleek style, right? My New Year's resolution this year was the opposite because I was feeling so daggy as a mum. It was like, okay, every day when I get dressed, I'm just going to try and make it one level better. I'm just going to put on earrings or I'm just going to put on lipstick or something that I didn't have on before. I'm going to make it one level better. So just try and figure out how you can just make things a tiny bit better. don't put pressure on yourself to revolutionize your life and find a new vocation and completely feel like yourself again. Just try and give yourself permission to just make things a little bit more fun, a little bit easier. So it might be like just one nap time a week where you like write in your journal or read a book, or like, just look at that list of things that made you happy when you were young and just do the tiniest possible little thing, just one time. You don't have to start a whole new hobby. You can just do like one 15-minute yoga session or something, or make one cocktail.
Yeah.
Um, so I think just having that attitude of smallness, and I know this is really frustrating to women, particularly driven women. We want a big solution and we want it all to be better. And we want a New Year's resolution and we want a new weekly schedule. And then I'm here saying, oh no, I want you to get a little bit of sleep and then I want you to try and do one fun thing. And people are so resistant to this. They're like, no, I want a whole new revolutionary plan. And I say to them, if you can't do this, if you can't get one night of sleep and do one fun thing, I'm sorry, but you're not going to be able to do a whole new revolutionary plan. So just do the one night of sleep and then come back to me, okay? And so that's really important place to start. Obviously, if you need help with this, Monique, obviously you can coach people, with your therapy and your music stuff and you're bent on things. I know that's your wheelhouse and you're amazing for that. I can coach people if they're really thinking about a new vocation or transforming an existing vocation into a creative money-making endeavor. That's something I've been doing for 10 years. I do free 30-minute sessions for new clients. So if people want to find me on Instagram, they can find the link through there. And I'm happy to just sit with someone for 30 minutes and they don't have to sign up. It's a little test run for both of us, but I just love to help women start to think about this stuff. So I'd say reach out to me, or Monique, reach out to someone else and just start talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll put all your details in the show notes as well so people can connect with you. And
That'd be
I
great.
kind of laughed to myself when you were saying, put one more, add one more thing. And one of my things was when you said earrings, I was like, oh yeah, I told myself I was going to like explore with more jewelry, and like literally I failed today. Clearly I've got
you've got nothing.
Kind for me to be like, oh, that's right. I told myself I could do that in January and it's February.
Yeah.
Probably not.
I've been doing it.
Times.
I've been doing it, and I have to say it feels amazing because the trick is, right? If you start wearing earrings, then suddenly every day you're wearing earrings, and then you're like, oh, now I've got to do something else. I guess I'll add lipstick. And suddenly, that's how it happens. Baby steps. Yeah.
Yeah. Baby steps. Yes, because that's right. Like if we try and go all in from the get-go, like it just overwhelm us, and then it kind of has affected what we were kind of trying to go for in the beginning. So yeah, I'm all for little small baby shifts because accumulated over time they do become these big shifts. So
they do. They really do.
Preach as well, and it's going to really support you in the long run to just start off and grow from there for sure.
Yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom you would like to share before we wrap it up today?
I think like my big word of wisdom is just do it. Like if someone was listening to this and this sparked something for you and you just thought, maybe I could wear earrings, or maybe I could go to that singing lesson, or maybe I could just do it. Do it now. Do it tired. Do it messy. Yesterday, I tried to practice the ukulele. I got a ukulele for Christmas. I played it for like 7 minutes while my toddler was grabbing at it and putting it out of tune. It was very annoying, but you know what? I learned a new chord. So just get started. That's my big advice. And my other advice is you just don't have to do things the way everyone else does them. I don't, Monique, you don't. So, it's possible to have a life where you feel relaxed, where you feel connected to yourself, where you're doing something you're passionate about, where you're making plenty of money, and where you're spending time with your kids and you don't feel guilty. It's actually possible. Like I've got that life. I know people who live that life. And you don't have to be a special person to do that. Anyone ordinary can do it. We can help you to do it. So just believe, I think. Just start, just do it, just do something and just believe. Those are my two big bits of advice.
Yeah, love that. Love that. Simple yet so true and effective. Oh, well, thank you so much, Kamina, for joining me on today's episode. I so appreciate your time. It's been so great chatting with you and hearing all about what you do and all the wisdom that you bring to the world and to women and to mothers.
Yeah.
And if you'd like to connect with Kamina, all her details, as I said, are in the show notes. She would love to chat with you if this is something you want to explore more of within yourself. And thank you, Kamina. Appreciate your time.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me. It's been great. And yeah, I would love people to connect. Just come follow me on Instagram at Kamina James. And you'll get more affirmations, tips, fun stuff, and great community over there.
Beautiful. Thank you, everyone. I will speak to you next week on the podcast.